When working with images, levels and curves are quickly going to become your friend, and it takes a little bit to wrap your mind around how they work. But once you understand it, they become very powerful, and you often see a lot of professional Photoshop users using things like levels. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. You can follow along with the c.psd file. If you go to Image Adjustments and you go to Levels, you can see the shortcut key here is Control L or Command L, and you can see that Levels and Curves both have shortcut keys, so you know you might use them often. So let's go ahead and click on Levels and take a look at it. Now, Levels basically is a graph that is showing pixel information from 0 to 255, darkness to brightness, or from black to white. And here we're seeing the RGB information. And if I change this, it might be a little easier to see. So let's change this to red. This is all the red information that is in this picture. So if we look at the black or the darkest pixels, there isn't a whole lot of those on the red channel. And then if you look in this image and you see these dark red areas, you can see that there are quite a few in the darker range, but not so much in the highlights until we get to this spike near the end. And you can see it's probably the feet. The feet have that reddish tint to it, and that's starting to spike upwards. If we take a look at the green, there's a lot of green in this image, and that's shown by this graph. So with the darker black pixels, there's some dark greens in here. There's not a whole lot of white or bright greens, but there's a ton of mid-range green. And if we look at blue, you can see that there is a lot of darker blues, but hardly any brighter or lighter blues in this image. So this is showing you, based on the different color channels, the darkest to lightest pixels. And if we go back to RGB, we're seeing all of them combined here. And what happens here is that we can adjust where these land and how dark or light this image is that we want it to be. So if we click on this dark slider or black slider on the left-hand side and we move it more toward the center, what we're essentially doing is telling Photoshop that all of the pixels for the RGB information, everything from here downward, should be darker. So let's go ahead and move that back, and let's go to, say, the green channel. On the green channel, we can say we're going to move this, and anything that is darker than these pixels here, we need to make them black or darker themselves. So we're moving up this dark channel or this dark slider and telling where the pixels need to start getting darker. And as we do that, we start losing some of that color information. And it works the same way with the lights. So as we move this up, we are basically saying that we want to pull in more of those light pixels from the green channel. And then when we do RGB, because it's a mix, we are kind of moving them evenly. So by moving the slider up, we are making everything have more black or darker tones. And if we move the white slider this way, we are adjusting and having more whiter tones or lighter tones. So this is a quick way to come in here and adjust these on a per channel basis. If you move the mid-tone slider, it's going to do the same thing. You can either add more darkness into your mids or more lightness or whiteness into your mids here based on this slider. Now it outputs all of this information into a single graph from darkness to light, and you can do the same thing, only this is in reverse. As we move this, we are losing the dark information on a whole. So you can see the whole image is actually getting whiter versus going this way where the colors are getting pulled out and then adjusting to the whiteness. It's not even where this is even here. And the same thing this way. It's going to get darker all the way across the board evenly, where this is going to be based on the actual color information of this image. So this is going to change depending on which image you're using and the channels that it's using here. There's also some presets. So again, we can click on any of these, such as darker. It's going to automatically move these up, make the image darker, or we can increase the contrast. And as we move these around, you can see the levels adjusting. So here we brought in a little more darks and a little more whites, and it made those contrast colors pop a little more, opposed to the original that was a little more flat. So you have the chance to go ahead and use any of these defaults or mess around with this graph. There's some other options here like auto and some additional options that you can click on. And you can see those advanced color options here that you can go through and mess around with if you would like to. And then, of course, you can do samples of colors to set black point, gray point, and white point, and you can turn off the preview. But basically, all you're doing is you're saying on this graph, again, we'll take a look at let's take a look at the reds. The reds don't have a lot of red in the higher end. And so as we bring that down, we pull out more of those reds, or more of the red with the white or light colors. Or if we grab this way and drag it in, we're bringing in more of the dark of those reds. But when we're on RGB, everything is across the board. So hopefully that makes sense. I know it can be a little complicated to understand, but as you begin using it and moving these sliders around, you'll start understanding that this graph is just from 0 to 255 on all of the channels, and you're either adding in more black, or you're adding in more white, essentially moving that in, or adjusting the gray point and the output levels here.